In this video, I will be recreating Gaz Oakley's vegan pepperoni. The very first thing I'm going to do is get together all of the ingredients, all of the dry and all of the wet ingredients. Once all of the ingredients are together, the process is pretty simple. I'm going to get a food processor and I'm going to add all of the wet ingredients, including the tofu and the miso, to the food processor and blend it really well. Once that mixture is blended, I'm going to add in all of the dry ingredients and blend that. I'm going to blend it a few times, probably for about 3 minutes. This is going to ensure that the entire mixture is very well combined. Next, I'm removing this seitan dough from the food processor and I'm going to knead it for about 10 minutes. I find that it's easiest just to do it by hand. It will get tiring, but it's just easier to fold dough over and tighten up this mixture so that way it has more of that pepperoni texture. After kneading the dough, it's time to separate this pepperoni into 2 to 3 different sausage link, sort of 2 to 3 different like sausage shapes. I find that going with 2, you're gonna have 2 really long pepperoni sticks, but you can go with 3, you can go with 4 to make them a little bit shorter, whatever's easiest for you. To do that, just rip it in half, shape it, add it to some wax paper, and then add it to some aluminum foil. When it comes to the aluminum foil, you want to make sure that you're completely sealing it, because when it comes to cooking, we want to make sure that the seitan stays intact and is not affected from boiling. Now it is time to cook the pepperoni. I'm going to add it to the water and I'm going to let it simmer for about 1 hour. This might take a little bit of back and forth checking to make sure that it's not at boiling and that it is still at a hot enough temperature to be simmering. Once the pepperoni finishes the cooking process, I'm going to add it to the freezer. I'm adding it to the freezer because I want it to cool quickly. Cooking it quickly is good, but letting it sit overnight in the fridge will ultimately be better. That will allow it to tighten up a bit more and those gluten fibers to really strengthen their bond, and it'll get that chewier pepperoni texture. But just adding it to the freezer for about an hour will make it enjoyable enough. All that's left now is to slice up this pepperoni and to enjoy it. So in this video, I committed to making pepperoni and I wanted to try a different one. So I seeked out another content creator that, you know, I find that his stuff it tastes pretty well, it has some good flavor in it. And, you know, Gaz Oakley and his meat, I find it takes a little bit of a different approach. I noticed that he uses a good amount of like red wine in his seitan or his more of like red meats, And so I find that interesting because that's a little bit different than what I found in some of these other vegan meats. And so now, one, I use a alcohol-free red wine. So if you avoid alcohol, this recipe still works out perfectly fine. Now, the first thing with making this is that the ease is great. This is super simple. You know, it's mix wet, it's mix the dry, bring it together, combine it, fast, simple. So I really like that. I like how much this recipe makes. You could absolutely cut it in half and there still be plenty in the recipe. I was concerned with how the seitan felt after I was concerned with how the seitan felt after I kneaded it. It still felt a little bit softer, and I think that that's a lot because of using tofu. And I think that when you use tofu in seitan or in any vegan meat, it's going to add just ever so slight sponginess. And I'm saying spongy because that's what tofu comes across as, is spongy, but not in a bad way, especially in this meat, because when you add the tofu with Vital Wheat gluten, the reaction works out well enough where the gluten fibers still add tight bonds in the vegan meat to add that chewiness or that tougher texture that you need in a lot of the vegan meats. Cooking was simple. I was concerned as to whether or not the water was going to get inside of the wrapping when it boiled, but or when it simmered, but that didn't happen, so that worked out well. And then finally, you know, it's still pretty soft. I feel like overall this could use a little bit more chewiness, so I'd say probably it needs a little bit more Vital Wheat gluten to do that, to stiffen it up a little bit. But the flavor was good. I really enjoyed the mustard seeds in there and the fennel seeds, whereas the previous pepperoni I made only had the fennel seeds. So I think adding in that extra texture can go a long ways. I think that the flavor could use a little bit more, but it definitely had that meatiness, and I think that the red wine is an excellent addition in this recipe. So I could certainly see myself making this recipe again, or at the very least using it as a template, because I feel there's some small things that could be done to the pepperoni that would really elevate it and bring it to the next level. And so I'm excited about giving that a try and bringing it here and offering it with you guys sometime in the future. It's really a lot of fun to make the vegan meats and just kind of experience that process. So I look forward to sharing more of those with you, some more comfort foods, other just great recipes with all of you, because I'm your friend with food benefits. And I will see you again real soon.